Come on, guys. Okay, you guys hear me?
Yep.
Okay. I always like to hear an acknowledgement. I'm gonna pass down this because I haven't edited it since the last update, and I know everyone was buried with regional summit, and I didn't go. I don't think any of you guys attended, so there's no pass down as to what happened there. So I want to go to pull requests. We have actually 7. There's one minor one I want to go through, and then we can go into cool environment. So I know you've made a number of changes. Mike, have you gone ahead? Are you ready to go talk about it? Are we
I'm ready to
still
talk about it.
okay? Um, then I like to go into okay. Then I had a AR to do a component baseline, which I've gone ahead done. In that is also a discussion of the inheritance diagram, which I also had an AR for. Uh, Jeff, you have created a Redfish service baseline.
Yep.
Are you ready to talk about that?
Yes.
Okay, I think that would take all our time because I don't think we've made any progress on. I haven't made any progress on server management. And Jeff, did you want any time for
Yeah.
sustainability?
Yeah. The sustainability one should be quick, but I do want to talk about that just because we're gonna have we've got some other integrations to do. So
Okay. Um, in that case, let's go through. Wait, if I switch windows, can you see this?
yep.
You mean add a new
Good,
tab? Yeah.
Yeah.
good. Yeah, I know. One of them doesn't allow you to do that. So this is a it's this profile. So this was found by Amelia when she was testing the OpenRMC. It's basically fixing syntax error.
Why are you keying off of name values?
Ooh.
Okay, at the time, oh yeah, we did this
Yeah.
off of should we not?
No, that's like keying off of an ID value. You're not gonna get
Yeah.
interoperability around that. That's
Well, and besides, that one will always fail because if you have more than one.
oh yeah, if you have more than one voltage, then you're gonna fail that on everything that's not named VRM1 voltage. Yeah, I think there is
Yeah.
syntax for doing this value has to exist once. I forget what it is though.
Supported.
No, it's not supported.
Um, I just had the spec open.
All right, so let's step back. What are you trying to do with this requirement?
I well, if this can't be done, then I have to go figure out exactly
Well,
what we're trying to do.
yeah, I'd say what are you trying to do, and we'll give you guidance on the best way to
Right,
do
right.
that.
So okay, I understand. So the requirement on physical context is okay,
Well,
right?
but this is going to apply to every voltage, and also, yeah,
Mm,
this is basically anytime you see a voltage. Oh, but you're just doing values in there. That's not right.
Yeah, no, that's a
No, that's,
that's a min support values. Oh no, sorry, it's not min. It's
you need a comparison.
yeah, and a comparison with an all of.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, let me go talk to what we're trying to do because I know she hacked the profile in order to get it to pass. So the the implementation is correct. The fix of the profile was incorrect to get it to pass. So we'll go figure out what we have to go do. Okay. So and that. Okay, at least for that. So next is component baseline. No, CDU. Mike, you want to go share? Or do you want me to share for you?
Well, if you share for me, that means it's gonna put my profile to the test of whether or not you understand it.
I don't want to be tested this early in the morning. Nice. Okay. Yeah, you want to look at files?
Yeah,
Change?
because I also included the markdown specs to go with each of them. So it's broken down into two profiles. One is a baseline liquid cooling profile for all types of liquid cooling components. And then on top of that, there's a CDU profile. So we could start with the liquid cooling baseline,
Which
which is these.
down here.
OCP. Yep. It focuses on reporting the physical aspects of the device. So showing a chassis, having all the common through and status properties for chassis, linking to the cooling units and the manager for the thingy. I think one of the key things here is having sensors.
Okay, so it's just a chassis. This is environmental matrix, thermal.
And most of thermal is, if implemented, because it's really relying on the usage of fans and other internal temperature reporting, which may or may not be present in these devices.
Okay.
At least working with Mick, apparently reporting an internal temperature and an ambient temperature is not done on a lot of these devices. So then it goes into cooling units, so showing the functional view. It's largely analogous to the chassis view, just more the cooling type of information. So showing coolant, showing the capacity, leak detection. It was critical here. A lot of the other information, like the through information, is pretty much would be identical to what's in chassis. And then going to leak detection. So they do require leak detection as part of these devices, including leak detector information itself. So right now the profile points to the OCP server baseline. I want to switch that over to Jeff's new Redfish service profile as a baseline. Sorry, baseline hardware management is what it's pointing to now. So I'll update that reference to Jeff's new Redfish service baseline. That's really the intent, is getting up all those Redfish bookkeeping functions. Then CDU builds on top of the liquid cooling baseline. We don't need to go into the chassis view because that's all covered by the liquid cooling baseline already. So this is all just augmenting the cooling unit view. So specifying in thermal equipment, you need to have your CDUs collection. Cooling unit enforces the CDU value for equipment type. Also adding in coolant connectors and optional redundancy for those, filters, filter redundancy, pumps, pump redundancy, reservoirs, and secondary coolant connectors. And going into filter, showing its status state, all the serviceability metrics. Most of location is optional with the exception of the service label. I was hoping to make all of that mandatory, but Mick said that might be a tall order.
Okay.
Yeah, so at least getting your sticker label as far as how a user gets to the filter.
So so recommended means that it may or may not be implemented on the
Yes.
system.
Correct. But we're giving guidance that it's in good practice to implement it.
So is if implemented below recommended?
No. If implemented is above recommended, where you say, if you have this functionality, it's now mandatory.
Ah. Okay. So this has all been reviewed with Mick, right?
Yep. Yeah, I worked with him offline on this and worked through his cooling unit spreadsheets that help drive a lot of this.
Okay.
Pump is very similar. Main difference here is having your pump speed reading. Reservoirs, if implemented, apparently CDUs may or may not have a reservoir. So if you don't have a reservoir in your design, then you don't implement that resource.
Does pump speeds have a reading? It just has a percent.
Pump speed percent.
Okay. Okay.
And then in there you have reading.
Oh, okay. Okay. We just.
Yeah, reservoir, same thing, except in this case, it's if implemented because not all CDUs have reservoirs. So if you do have a reservoir, then it's mandatory. If you don't, then don't implement it. So that's the distinction, John, about if implemented is.
Yeah, but my question becomes, how does the interop validator know that it's been implemented?
We don't, and that's an open issue.
Okay.
There's been some spitballing around this to say, maybe we need to have a config file that describes what the hardware is, so we can actually test those if implemented requirements. So you could say things like, this server I'm testing has fans. Well, I don't see any fan resources, and the profile
Right.
says,
Yeah.
if implemented, I'm going to elevate that to a failure.
Okay. So I totally agree with that.
Yeah.
So we probably there's not the point for the discussion, but if we
no, it's
talk about that the tools task force.
Yeah, it's a recognized issue, so it's TBD.
Okay. So should we get that fixed before we get this profile out, or should we put the profile out and say it's not testable yet?
I mean,
well, there's lots of stuff that's not testable in the profile.
Well, this is a big part, right? Because if we have a lot of if implemented and it's not that entire
Well, if they,
I mean,
right. But if you do any of it, then everything there does get tested.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
right?
so we're just trusting them that they're
I mean, if you have
implementing
a law
everything that they're exposing everything they implemented.
right.
Yes,
Yeah,
I mean,
okay.
at the because yes, there is the testability aspect of profiles, but there's still also the fact that people use these as a way to collect requirements and provide documentation. And so I don't want to hold up a profile
no,
just because of the testability.
and the testability, I think, is the minor function of the profile. I mean, that's
It depends on who you ask.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I would not quite
Agreed.
say that.
Agreed, but
Because if they say, hey, I got a thumbs up from your interop validator, that's what you said. All I need is that's fine. If there's a way of
Well,
quote, gaming the system by not exposing it, then there's an issue. So I think closed-end testability
okay, so
is a good thing, right?
oh, agreed. But
yeah,
yeah, we still don't have there is no way for us to smell the hardware. So
Right.
yeah.
I totally agree. Having a syntax to capture all these requirements is good, but the testability essentially is something that OCP will want to know because they want to be able to tell people you run the interop validator with our profile. If it gives you a thumbs up by whatever means, right? Then we're good. And the requirement is that you shall submit a config file. Huh. Because they have to at some point someone has to audit, right? Someone has to audit the config file to make sure the config file matches their implementation.
So
Okay.
John, do you want to peel apart the right requirement onion at this point? That's even
Sure.
worse.
that's yeah.
No, the answer is no, you don't.
Okay, all right.
Exhaustive write testing is we don't know how to solve that right now. So just keep that in the back of your mind that there are gaps. They are advertised as issues, so it's not like we're hiding it. It's
Yeah, but I should provide OCP a paper, right? Something on this is what we believe is testable with the interop validator, and these are the things that we are not testing. We cannot test.
I think something like if implemented, we could solve with something like a config file when it comes to other more granular testing, like with the right requirements, that gets a lot dicier.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
just
Hi, this is my first meeting, so I really am trying to figure out what's going on. Could you explain to me what you mean by exhausted write requirements?
So in the profile, I don't think there's any in this one today, but other profiles they mark write requirements on properties to say this property implemented by the service, a user has to be able to go in and modify the property.
Okay.
Having in some cases maybe like a Boolean property may be easy. You just ping pong between true and false. You might need to have a bit more context as to what exactly you're testing, because maybe when you change a property to false, you might disable an interface, and that interface could be used for testing. So there's a bit of diciness with some of that testing.
Yeah.
Other aspects are along the lines of string properties. So what are valid things I can stick in this string property? Some of them can be IP addresses. So do you really want to go through and start testing IP addresses as the string values on certain things? Maybe you do, maybe you don't. So it's a complicated area that we haven't really wanted to solve yet.
It becomes destructive testing, or or dangerous of the like I can't recover your configuration, or you've made the system unreachable. Lots of things you can't do, or at least we can't do without putting some really big safeguards around it, which we're just not in a position to do.
Yeah. So just a little bit of my background and kind of an introduction. My name is Don Gaither. I work with Vertiv in their data center infrastructure management. Michael, you mentioned Mick. I'm assuming that's Mick Jones.
That's
I actually
right.
I work with him. So,
Oh.
and I manage our test group. So when you start talking about exhaustive writing, that's what I thought you meant, was things like what happens if I try to shove a 2 into a Boolean value?
Mhm.
And what happens if I try to do 1,000
Oh, I
characters
see.
into a
Yeah,
string
no,
value?
No,
So
that
that's why I
wasn't.
perked up a little bit about, okay, I
Exhaustive
think I
is
know
in
what he means.
coverage, not push it till it breaks.
Okay.
Yeah, not that level of testing. That's a different order of testing.
Okay.
But yeah, this is a level of when I say exhaustive write testing, I mean in the scope of what the profile is trying to convey.
Coverage.
Yes.
Okay. Cool. So you're looking at exhaustive positive testing, not all the fun part of testing of
in,
how
in,
can I
Right,
break it.
exactly.
in this case, yes. Yeah,
Okay.
especially when it comes to profiles, more want to focus on the happy paths. There are
Yeah.
separate tools that would do exactly what you're talking about.
Mhm.
But
I
those
should
are
say,
independent of a profile, though. Yeah.
yes, those are independent of the profile.
Okay. Cool. Thanks. That's what I needed.
I was just thinking about the README for that interrupt profile and whether we should list what we don't test.
Yeah, I'll see if I can scrub the spec and the issues list to get you something cohesive.
Because then then someone like
I'm thinking.
Don can go figure out. Okay, great. Did you test that part? Here's all the negative testing I have to go right.
I'm thinking it may be something we want to put into the validator report to say something like, hey, this resource was marked as if implemented and we didn't find one. So, you should manually verify that the product doesn't actually support this, or if you need to, wag your finger at them.
Yeah, that's one way of doing that.
And I think sort of John's point about the report is kind of where people are gonna, want their thumbs up, thumbs down. So that may be the place where we give that. And then back that up with that config file. So like, hey, I don't have a config file, so I didn't find one of these. Is that okay?
Right.
Yeah, let's
go fix that. The tools task force.
Yeah, let's save it for elsewhere. They're all good ideas.
Yep.
Let's
Okay,
just
let's
focus on the profiles.
Okay. Okay, Mike. Still.
Yeah. So that's reservoir. Very minimal. If you do have a reservoir, show the service label, show the reservoir type, show the fluid level, show the capacity. Fluid level percent is recommended. I thought there's a fluid. Oh yeah, fluid level status is mandatory. Okay. Then we have coolant connector. This serves as both the primary and secondary side coolant connectors, getting the type of coolant that flows through it, the type of connector itself, and all the metrics and ratings associated with the coolant connector. That's it.
Okay, and Don, I don't know if you've seen the documentation behind this. So we split the profile, which is JSON, and some people want to read it, and some people don't. Most people don't, and so we write this thing called use document, which basically allows someone to figure out what type of use cases are supported and how that interaction would go using Redfish.
Okay, cool.
So in this case, it's his use case is in the group of inventory. You can get chassis information and you can get cooling info. And if you follow the link down.
Well, so actually, John, so I know this is the path that we kind of went originally. I wonder, do we even need to call out the use case table of included profiles, or should we just reference the other document?
Oh, you can just reference yes, no, you can reference the included document. That would be fine, so you don't go duplicating things.
Yeah, because I started building up like the CDU profile, and I'm going, am I going to start referencing? So I have to reference the previous profile, then I have to reference its previous profiles as well. So I'd rather not have all that copy paste linkage if possible. Okay, so I'll change this to remove this use case table and then just reference the liquid cooling baseline spec. And then the liquid cooling baseline spec will reference the Redfish service baseline spec.
Okay, so leaving it here, this is what's in the baseline, which we talked about first.
Mhm.
And this is an extension
Yes.
to the baseline, which are these additional use cases, given the fact that you're using it for CDU.
Yes.
So yeah, I'm trying to explain this to Don. I'm trying to explain it to myself. So inventory, the baseline like gets you the chassis and the cooling unit info, and then with this additional extension, you get the CDU info.
Okay.
And so
seems to make sense.
that's why we have baseline as a subset, proper subset of all the things that extend from it.
Right. And then do you all have nested subsets potentially where it's like, okay, for this subset you have to have the baseline plus this other subset because
Yes,
things
that's
like that.
yeah. So there's another profile that Jeff provided
We-
last night that it's going to have that type of layering. So the OCP liquid cooling baseline focuses on that subset, that table, and then there's a general Redfish service baseline that would apply to all Redfish services, regardless of the type of product, that has its own table of mandatory functions.
So I have a great inheritance diagram which will explain all that. I was trying to make
Okay.
sense of what we're now expanding off and doing. So that's so I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on this
Yeah.
because you can basically reference it. So so the front part of this is just a table of here's the usages. So someone not skilled in the art of JSON profiles can comment on against this.
Okay.
And then when you go down, like get the CDU info, which is new here. This is the fragment you would get down to if you follow the link, which is this is your command.
Okay.
And this is what you should get back in your response.
Yeah.
So you should be able to filter whatever you want out of this. So that someone not skilled in the art, but only knowing cooling units can say, okay, this is the command, right? This is in fact the information I want provided back.
All right. That makes sense.
Okay,
Thank
I think the only thing that isn't here, which I thought about but haven't figured out how to do easily, is indicate which ones of these are recommended and which ones are mandatory.
Oh, just put everything in there and they'll implement to it. So
I know.
you get all the recommendeds.
Yeah,
Well,
we call this implementation by markup. Just take the markup and that's what they do. They don't read any of the text at all.
Well, it's like writing bugs. Just write all the bugs and then dev will push back and then you can have the conversation. Just tell them they have to put in everything. And then when they push back, we don't have that, then you can have the conversation.
So I think the intent is to have this document, the markdowns, reviewed by the subject matter experts. If they're okay with that, then we kind of warrant that the profile represents whatever is described in the usage guide.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I'll try to dig through these. I just want to sit in today to start getting a feel for what was going on before I tried to jump into a GitHub because I didn't know how nested it was.
Right. Okay. So Mike, at this point, is Mike going to drive this or through his the cooling management team?
I will talk to Mick about that since I've
Okay.
not been to any of those meetings, nor do I know where it happens.
Okay. So I attend and Jeff attends.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
Yeah, Mike and John, can I have a questions?
yes.
Yeah. So for the baseline, is it the requirements for chassis?
No. So I believe. Go ahead. I think
So-
I understand your topic.
Yeah, can we take a look the baseline? The cooling baseline, yes.
Yeah, it's on chassis.
Yeah. I was wondering, is it, will you have same problem as our baseline because it doesn't it requires all chassis types to have those property implemented.
Uh, yes, because there are different types of cooling units with different form factors all mapped to different chassis types, like a rear door heat exchanger.
Yeah, so we need those use cases apply here, right?
They haven't been called out by the cooling folks yet.
Right. I think the use cases that we went down was a rat hole, and we should not go down that again until we figure out exactly what we're doing. So that's why we have a CDU baseline, we'll have a component baseline, and we'll have a platform baseline.
Yeah, because I would not expect someone testing a service to just use a baseline. They would look at the CDU baseline, that'd be their test point, and they would be testing against a standalone CDU, not something that's aggregating everything. And so at that point, it's very singular in nature.
I see. So there's a service on the CDU.
Yes.
Okay.
On all types of CDUs.
Okay, I see.
Let me show you. So you done? If we're done, we'll go on. Okay, so since we're talking about this anyway, so this is what I see. Actually, I think you just mentioned that. Oh, do you guys see this?
Yes.
Yep.
All right. Yeah. So I think this is what has just happened. That goes there. That goes there. That goes there. Okay. So last month we had this which was the base platform baseline. I'll just call baseline. I don't want to rename everything. And this is extended by server profile and the rack manager profile. And this is and the switch profile. And I'll put this in italicized because this isn't released. And then we've been talking about this component based baseline. Oh, let's go finish this. So what Jeff did was he did a Riffit service baseline because I think this has accounts and something else, and we want it's pretty weak. So Jeff wanted a more fuller description of Riffit services, and that'll be this baseline. And so the platform baseline will reference this Riffit service baseline. So what Mike has just done, I didn't know you had already done this, was that you've created the CDU profile.
Yep.
Okay. And I'll go draw the line.
And I've changed that CDU baseline to liquid cooling baseline.
And I'll fix the dotted lines. Dotted lines means it was a pipe dream. So, okay, so this hasn't occurred yet. This exists. This exists. That goes solid. Yeah, so I'll go fix it up. Anyway, so we've had this. We're doing this. We'll talk about this later, and then now we're going to go talk about this component baseline, which is a baseline which is less than a platform. So I assume that eventually this will become the GPU if we want to talk about it, and that will go into a server or whatever you want to go put it in, a standalone unit, whatever.
PowerShelf wouldn't.
Yeah,
that.
I just threw this in here because I said I've got these
Okay.
profiles around here. Where's PowerShelf going?
PowerShelf So right now it would just map directly on top of Redfish service. There could be a desire to break apart PowerShelf and have a power unit baseline that covers all classes of power equipment.
Mhm.
I think as a simple addition, we'll just say PowerShelf inherit from Redfish service. And if we decide to
Yeah.
if we decide to make a rack PDU profile and we want to break apart the requirements to have as much leverage, then we can do that at that point.
Yeah, and just for Donald's education, you know, a rack PDU profile is on my to-do list.
Okay, so this rack PDU profile will be here and will be absorbed by the rack.
That's
No,
no,
that would
No.
it would look like that PowerShelf
Oh.
is where I was drawing it now, but yeah, we certainly could think about and see how is it worth having a, you know, a power equipment baseline equivalent to what Mike's got with the liquid cooling baseline. I don't know. Because I think that I mean, just off the top of my head, I think those baselines, at least for power, would be like the chassis requirements, and that's not worth. It's not worth creating another level of hierarchy just for chassis stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, so all right, so what's
So while
gonna
he's
be
adjusting that stuff, is there currently a power for like UPS and power distribution units and things like that in all this? Because I mean, it's
Ask that again, Donald.
sorry, I was just wondering, you know, you were talking about rack PDUs, but there's when you look at the overall getting power from the utilities company into the
Yes.
data center into the server, there's, you know, your power distribution unit, there's your for the data center, there's UPSs, there's a lot of power pieces, and I was just curious, do those already have profiles, or are you just trying
No.
to focus on the rack here?
Yeah, no, there are no other there are no profiles in that whole area. And since we have implementations of Redfish on rack PDUs, that was where we were going to start.
Okay.
Even though the data model can cover just about everything we still don't have enough information to fully cover a UPS, but the rest of the switchgear, at least we think we've got completion on that, but we haven't heard of implementing those to give us more feedback.
Okay. Yeah, that's just part of my
Chicken and egg.
ancillary world,
Yeah.
you know, given what Alvertive does. So I was like,
Right.
okay, I wasn't hearing about any of the other pieces. So
right, and
if you have some input to provide there, we are all ears.
or better yet, you could draft a profile for us
Yeah.
because even though I made a PowerShelf profile, I've never touched one.
yeah, well, it was very so what was really going on in the back of my head was I was starting to go through list of people that I could talk to about, did you know this is currently a hole in OCP? Do we have anyone who has experience in those areas? So I can't promise anything, but it definitely going through my head of in my contact list.
Oh, I've done the same exercise here. I just get back crickets when I ask for help.
Yeah.
Like, oh yeah, there's a gap here. We want this fixed. Okay, can you help me? Who are you again?
Yeah.
right. That's one of the reasons I started this diagram was that we've been focused for several years on just that. And now with all the profiles that we have in flight, we're kind of branching out into these other areas, and we had to make sense of what we were doing in case anyone asks how they're going to get linked together. So my legend was that the normal text was things that are already released, so people know about it. Switcher stuff like italicized are still in draft, and so they haven't been released. And so a couple of these should still be italicized, and we just want to figure out how to organize this, so when new ones come in flight, that we know how to put it within this inheritance diagram. So, but going back to component baseline, right? That's why Now, this component is, I didn't want to say GPU because GPUs may or may not, will be here eventually. So I'll just stick with either Nick or Smart Nick and say that we're going to do a component baseline for something less than a platform. And Smart Nick, let's say, is an add-in card, it gets done as a component baseline extension, and then eventually it gets linked into referenced by the server. So I mean, it won't be referenced by this baseline, but it'll be referenced by whatever platform is designed to hold it.
Mhm.
That
think
makes
that
sense.
makes sense.
Yeah.
So for you to answer your question, GPU would be here, and it'll get placed somewhere.
Mhm.
So that's why I think at that point use cases are not particularly useful. I think use cases are useful insofar as I can now go to the server group and say, you own these chassis enumerations. I go to the switch guys and say, you own these chassis enumerations, and everything else no one has taken ownership of.
So have you thought about the inheritance structure in a fabric?
No, I did this last night. No, I have not.
Okay.
Would you like to take a shot at one?
No, because it makes my brain hurt.
Now you stepped in it.
Okay, so I assume you think we need one.
Yeah, because the
I-
CMS group is starting to look at this stuff. So
I wonder if the right answer for fabrics is when you bubble things up for fabric management, do you really need to slurp in all these other profiles, or do you just need to document what an administrator is going to do to manage a fabric?
I think you still need the profile that discusses switches and zones and inherits from Redfish service.
Mhm.
So you still need that one.
And
And
that's all part of fabric management anyway. So I could see that, but
then
does
you need
that-
a FAM profile, which is probably different than a memory profile.
Mhm.
But I'd hate to go beyond that.
Yeah,
Because you
it's
need
all
you need both the
it-
component side of the server for memory and then the FAM side, which is going to be different.
yeah, you also need to
Okay.
think about what your test point is, because
You got two.
yeah, I guess in a pure fabric sense, are you necessarily always going to test the fabric attached memory usage? Probably not. That might be a different level of testing.
Well, I think Sunfish would want to make
Okay.
sure that all their little plugin providers work.
Okay.
So should we have this conversation about the
Yeah.
inheritance diagram here or in the fabrics task force or someplace else?
It's probably here.
Okay, all right.
And then because when CMS starts doing them,
Oh yeah.
they have an answer, right? OCP CMS. They've been dragging their feet on doing anything, but apparently they did a face-to-face last week and waved some hands in the air. So it may
Oh,
be
great.
time to re-engage with them.
Okay, all right. Or at least we have a beginning structure to at least explain.
Mhm.
We could.
Okay.
All right. Thank you guys. So I wasn't gonna spend too much time on baseline profile because I basically took the baseline and ripped almost a lot of stuff out of it. I can go through it with you. And then Jeff, I think we just have time for your redfish service.
Yeah, well, tell you what, let's, I mean, I can talk quickly to the sustainability one in about 2 minutes, but so and I don't think you don't really need to show it. So the sustainability group, starting with the power telemetry and the folks, but basically that profile it has very few things in it. It's just trying to set that set of properties that expose data for 3 use cases. So the first is just basic system inventory of, well, not even system inventory in the sense of how we would think of from an exhaustive, It's really I need enough product information, at kind of at the SKU level, for me to be able to go look up in some carbon footprint database. So it's just enough product information to be able to do that as a starting point. That's the first thing. The second thing is the physical location, because if you're gonna try to calculate carbon footprint, you need to know electric, the mix of electric and the carbon loads there. So knowing where the equipment is, in the world, is also important. And then lastly, and this is the most important part, is the actual power and energy measurements, on the consumption side. So the structure here is basically says, and we're trying to get this at a low level, or sorry, at a minimal footprint of, I would hope that anyone implementing, a product today, they should be able to pass these. So that, that's the intent. We're not trying to add hardware. There may be some firmware that has to be done there if you didn't put enough location data in. But that should all be basic firmware stuff, not hardware. And so as long as you provide, total power and total power and energy, you can meet the profile on that regard. There are recommendations for classes of products like servers, that you provide, more granular power measurements to be able to get some of the efficiency pieces, but those are all recommended. What will happen next is another of the work streams in sustainability is working on new data center efficiency metrics, and in order to be able to calculate those new metrics, from live data as opposed to paper and spreadsheet, off of data sheets. You will need additional things that do require hardware. Probably the biggest one of those is the total fan power. And I know that's not a widely implemented thing. So we will add those things to this profile. I don't know if we want to do that, in release 1 or that's release 2, but whenever we first release it, those things will have to be, marked as recommended, because there's no hardware that's going to pass that today. And as I've explained to the sustainability folks, I think the path we should try to get folks on is they test the profiles, and hopefully they really need to pass them. So let's get them passing, the low bar of version 1 of sustainability, and then give them some runway to say version 2 of the sustainability is going to have profile is going to have these other requirements. So you better get cracking.
Okay.
So that's that, and that profile is completely freestanding, because it should just apply to anything, and it's not trying to give any other manageability use cases. So it's just just the data needed to support the use cases of the sustainability groups.
Okay. So I add this profile to my inheritance diagram and standalone.
Yeah, that one will like go around everything to just be a, I don't really want to call it a baseline, because I think it's just going to be
Right.
more
No,
a free
and
sheet.
it'll show other parts of OCP, right? You
Yes.
could, if you're prescriptive enough, or if you have enough prescriptive power, you can go ahead and create your own baseline, your own standalone.
Yeah. And, and in theory, I mean, we could have this, that it could, build on the service baseline that we'll get into next. Because like what you say, if we're going to say that if every OCP, Redfish managed product has to support that
Right.
baseline, well, then in
but
order to
that
get to sustainability, you'd have to get through that too. So
Right, that's a specification problem of
that's a specification.
service specs and everyone else, right? That gives us teeth. We just provide
Yeah.
the weapons.
Okay, so if you can, unless there's any questions on that, I think most folks here are aware of what we were doing there anyway. So
Okay, so I'm just so one thing I would ask is that Markdown does not have a table in front for use cases. So you've described how to do use case. I couldn't find a.
did I not do that for the?
That's what I looked for. While you were doing it, I said, oh, great, I'll just look at use cases. That's That's what I expect. That's what I expect to see at the front of anything anyway. So,
Okay.
so for the so yeah, so for the component, I'll just quickly go through this. It's mainly chassis, and I didn't know if I should have manager at all. But if I take you down to use cases, I've got hardware inventory, which is to get through information. I didn't know about asset tag because I'm dragging this across from baseline. So it's a bunch of questions here. Firmware version, which I thought we needed, since GPU was really interested in firmware update, status, chassis status, power, temperature, log, reset the component, location of the component, because this is a maybe. Do they need it? And then the model. So the last is, how do you connect this to the rest of the model? So do I need to get the manager of this component, in which case I need this, the link, and do I need to get the containing chassis, i.e. what system owns this? So that's all in there. I haven't gone through the requirements at all. But it looked like I could get power and temperature by just having environmental metrics as a requirement, and I did not actually need power subsystem or thermal subsystem. And I want to make sure I read that model right.
You may need to call out the way I did with the liquid cooling baseline with if implemented, because there could be components with embedded fans. Maybe you have components with embedded batteries. So
Right.
you probably don't need to do that right now, but that's something to keep in mind.
Okay. Okay.
But for
yeah.
your other comments, the more general readings, yeah, I would start with environment metrics as the starting point.
Yeah, that's I was able to find everything I needed in environmental metrics. So I said, well, then I don't have to have this bigger requirement for just the baseline component baseline, which I want to keep very low, of having power subsystem and thermal subsystem in it.
Yeah, that
But
makes sense.
I want to make it as easy for people to complete this. Okay, and then I was going to go look at the GPU profile, I think, which is now public, and to see if it becomes a proper superset of this.
Is that public now?
Well, we will be
Is it
public
a-
on the 16th. When it is presented, when anything's presented to the SC, it is in public.
Is it a 0.9 at least?
Is a 0.91.
Okay.
So I assume they've done as much as they want to do. So I assume when this came out, this couldn't like be should try to be a proper subset of whatever they have. Okay. And I just pushed this out this morning, so it should be available. I'm still hacking on it, trying to get this line up based on the new inheritance diagram. Any questions, Linda? Since you were really interested in making sure the component profile came out. Don't hear anything, either you mute or you're in shock. In 4
Oh,
minutes.
sorry, I was talking on mute. Yeah, it's really good profile, and I think you mentioned about the GPU profile. Is it going to be on top of this one?
Yeah, based on the inheritance diagram, I would expect the GPU to inherit directly off this.
Okay, so would it be have some like duplicated requirements on the other profile? So we have inheritance, right? For example, if the environment metrics on the upper level requirement,
Mhm.
would it be in this baseline as well? So how,
All
how
right.
do
Well,
we separate those?
I have not looked at the GPU profile yet. So any question you have, I just throw my head in there. I just don't know.
I
So
see. It's just an open question. So,
yes,
what
yes.
is
So I think the best is for you to look at this and see if it's a proper subset of the GPU profile. If it is, we're good. If not, we need to know what the difference is.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So,
Okay.
for one question, so for environment metrics, for GPU it is, but for other chassis may not. So I don't know if it's a required or not.
It is a requirement for a component baseline.
For all the components.
So unless you come up with a component that that you don't want this for, then we can go have a discussion. So
Okay, yeah. Let's
okay.
discuss that. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. That's why it's out there, so we can start this discussion. Jeff, do you have any time
Yeah,
to talk about? Want to
yeah.
bring it up, or you want?
Yeah, yeah. So just to introduce the concept, I think is, but so as John was showing on the on his inheritance diagram, I'm trying to do two things here. Number one is remove a lot of duplicated effort, and also remove all those conversations from all the subject matter expert groups within OCP that don't necessarily understand all of the how management software works, and so don't want them to have a bunch of conflicting requirements for things that, like, look, we need a consistent story for management software. So this, and baseline is everything, it seems. So this is and looking for a better name, but this is a redfish service baseline. So there should be no hardware requirements in here, I don't think.
I didn't see any.
Yeah, okay. So this should be purely firmware, and basically something that, a redfish service, even if it was implemented in an OS, although I think there are some stuff that would cause some issues if it was purely an OS based, thing with no hardware management expected, but that's outside of our scope anyway. So,
we'll cross that bridge when we get to it.
You're exactly. So this is just trying to cover all of the housekeeping functions and all the basics of performing management functionality. So you'll see all that stuff in there, and again, trying to make this. I think the bar here is a little higher than maybe what is shipping in many implementations today. So I've thrown some hey, this is what I think is useful, what is important for software, and also trying to set some direction on functionality. And so there may be some things that we'll need to back off to say, okay, well, let's not make those required. Let's make those recommended for now, and kind of see where folks get on their, on their conformance with their products. But again, I think we do want to get folks to pass these, soon, if not now, but also want to start setting directions of things. So some of this may be a little bit of a stretch, but it should all be firmware. So, if we need to do that, then yeah. And Mike, Mike made some comments to this morning, and I've already closed out most of those because they're like, yep. And I think some of those will be open for discussion. So please take a look at that one, and because this is one we want to, the intent here was to help folks and hopefully take a lot of work out of other people creating profiles, so they don't have to look at all this stuff.
Oh, license, event destination. Oh, okay.
Yeah, you'll see
that's event service. Okay.
Yeah, you'll see event service, event destination, basically the eventing subsystem, logging, accounts, accounts and all the related stuff for that, and session and service route, and then license service and update service. And I think that's, and manager. Yeah, manager protocols. But again, no hardware. So there is no chassis in here. There's no computer system in here.
I don't see managers. Event destination, event
Managers
service,
in there. It should be
license,
alphabetical. Keep going.
license click. Oh, I stopped there.
Yeah.
Sorry. Keep going.
Well, there's
Okay,
many.
yeah, I got it. I got it. Yeah,
So,
you're right. This is a
so
lot.
how do those common associations work? Do you have those like manager for a server and all that?
Don't, because, so if I would expect a server profile would then add
Okay,
to the manager resource, the manager for servers.
as long as we know the rule on who does the
Right,
links.
right. Yeah, but that only makes sense as a requirement for a server implementation.
Sure.
Wow, there's a lot in here. There's a big baseline.
Yeah. Well, again, I think that if we can use this to then take out the 600 lines out of someone else that wants to review it, it makes it easier for us for somebody like Donald to review the stuff around a rack CDU or a rack PDU, because he's actually just looking at the power related stuff and not all of this common redfish overhead or software functionality.
Yeah, that seems to make sense. Try to all modularity.
Yep.
This is all the stuff that everybody's going to need. So let's just put it all together, get it locked down once, and then
Exactly.
everybody inherits it.
Yeah, right. And then regardless of the class of equipment, if it's an OCP, design, then we have some consistency. And then folks can start to write software that relies on these things. And it's not, it's not, oh, I got 95% the same and 5% different.
Yeah. Because when you have 95% the same, you really have 75% the same, and about 20% that I implemented the exact same thing in a different way.
Exactly. Yeah, and so you'll see.
We don't like arbitrarily different.
Yeah.
So do you have the things like Active Directory and LDAP as if implemented or recommended?
I think they're marked as recommended. Actually, I think
There it is.
They
Oh,
recommend it. Yeah, yeah, that's the first thing
Okay.
I saw.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, and then if you do like an if implement, then obviously if you do those, then there are required properties. So like, if you have that, then you got to have the service addresses and the remote role mappings and so forth.
Okay, we are over time, guys. Losing
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
All right, that was a lot of material for today.
Yeah, well, go slow next time. You're much too productive of a month. Okay, thanks, guys.
All right.
All right, thanks,
Thank you.
y'all.
Bye.